Foreclosurepedia podcast. Foreclosurepedia podcast premieres each Sunday evening at 2300 hours and is a presentation of the Foreclosurepedia radio network. I want to speak with you all a little bit this evening about some really groundbreaking information that we've just come across, and it's groundbreaking not only to the contractors, but to the nationals and the prime vendors on the Hud side. A couple of years back in 2011, HUD had reached out under the process and under the contract known as 3.7, and they issued a sources sought solicitation for the putting together a 3.5, and why they didn't do it or how they implemented it is rather immaterial. What is material and what is on point is the fact that they did, and by about December, all the information flowed in, and nobody ever heard anything ever again. And about a month or two ago, I had several pretty high-level, C-level individuals, had a couple of corporations reach out to me, and they said, "Hey, Paul, you you seem to know a lot of interesting people. What gives? What's going on with 3.5? Maybe you could give some answers." And so I reached out to some of my sources, and I did get those answers that they wanted. And first and foremost, that was somewhat remarkable because here I am, a contractor in a county with one stoplight, who's been kicked around by this industry for quite a while. And those sources informed me, hey, we're getting ready to roll this out. This is precisely what we're doing, and so I published on that. You can see the thread up here right now. Ready the troops. HUD makes its move, and this is because of the fact that 3.5 the next week or two is going to make a publication very similar to this one. Not this one, because this is something that's different, but they're actually going to publish what's called the awards, and it's going to come out in FBO. Friends, this website right here, this is where you need to be. First and foremost, if you don't have a SAMS account, if you are not an approved vendor buying through the United States government, you're doing yourself a disservice. And honestly, I actually anticipate many corporations within the industry requiring that you have both a DUNS number, which is a Dun and Bradstreet number. It's, for want of better words, a credit tracking number for your company, and a SAMS account, because the SAMS website actually goes in there, and bring it up real quick for y'all. You can see, for example, here, this is it. You put all your information into it. The government pretty much vets you, make sure you are whom you say you are, and yada yada. As a side note, many of you all know, we actually consult on that. If you need any help with that, we are more than willing to to get your company registered with that, to get your DUNS number if necessary, and to get you more into, for want of better words, what I'd call the big leagues. So anyway, the article dealt with the fact that 3.5 is going to issue. And if you all remember, we're the ones who actually broke the story on 3.6. There wasn't a single prime vendor who would tell a single solitary contractor that they had lost the contract. Many of you all know that I actually contacted C-level individuals, both at A to Z and city side. And in essence, they shrugged their shoulders and they said, well, they read it on your website, why do we need to tell them anyway? Yeah. And that's my concern. Granted, both those companies, they were fairly decent to us, but it was the mentality of that. while the golden parachutes were being sewn in the back offices, and the splintered bones, if you will, of the contractors were used as the needles to put those parachutes together. Contractors, last Christmas, instead of being encouraged about the new year, what they had to do was look their wives and their husbands and their children in the eyes and say, you know what? After all we have done, we've been hung out to dry. If you read a little more into the article, you'll find that one of the largest shifts in the HUD M&M, the management marketing contract, is actually getting ready to come down the pike. And what I'm talking about here is 3.6. Now, 3.6, by all accounts, and this comes from sources on high. Some sources spoke to me somewhat on the record. Others absolutely demanded that they be quoted, with condition of anonymity. 3.6 is going to become 3.7, 3.8, and it will eventually merge probably into a 4.0. Now, the 3.7 is going to be with specificity to the asset management, and as most of you know who who read my stuff and listen to me, you know that that's the brokers and the realtors and such dealing with the sales of those properties. And then the 3.8 will deal with the FSM, or the field service management, which is what all of us contractors at the end of the day mainly function under, because we do the actual tangible physical labor and the property preservation. I have it on, I apologize, this sinus. Knoxville, Tennessee, statistically is the worst area for pollen on the face of the earth. And we've been having, excuse me, storms off and on for a week here. And, buddy, I'm just telling you, you wake up in the morning and your truck literally has about 1 millimeter deep of yellow pollen all over it. Probably post a picture of that one day. So anyway, by my best information that I've gleaned from my sources, we're looking at in upwards of 38 states. There's going to be a sources sought on those 38 states. And there's also, there's going to be a rollout on this. My guess, I wouldn't be surprised to see a sources sought as early as next month. Remember, once again, this is where it's going to come down the pike in the FBO. To get into FBO, simply come in here. For example, this is us, Foreclosurepedia. Register in there, and then you can get email alerts, and then to be able to participate in this. And remember, folks, just because you wouldn't be the company, if you will, that might be awarded a chunk of this, you might be a sub-company. But also, at the end of the day, it puts you in the loop. It puts you in the loop, folks, and that's where you need to be. Information is the most valuable commodity on the face of this planet. And the ability to interpret that information, the ability to both receive, transmit, and pull a, if you will, a meaningful pattern out of that information, that, my friends, is the new gold. So get in there, get your SAMS account done, move along with it. We, incidentally, I think most of you know, because we actually have, we're pretty much being flooded with requests to set up people's SAMS accounts and systems right now. We actually provide that service for those people who cannot or just simply do not want to do it or take the time. We can help you and implement your DUNS number. And the other aspect of SAMS as well is, this is all federal contracting. Statistically, we're looking at 1.2 to 1.6 trillion dollars probably this fiscal year that the federal government reaches out to contractors, buying through their contracts, the awarding thereof. 29 to 31% of all those enormous multi-billion-dollar contracts are then in turn subcontracted out to small businesses. Uh, no reason that can't be you. No reason whatsoever. The industry is going to tell you that can't be you. The industry is going to tell you your place in life, your position, is to be the one who gets paid pennies for scrubbing the shitters. You are the individuals whom are supposed to inhale and ingest the asbestos, the Spanish influenza, the lead-based products that we all know are out there. Doesn't matter what those addendums say. The mold, the methamphetamine, and then take that back to your family. See, that's your job. That's your job, and by God, you better keep your mouth shut. Yeah, yeah. We know how that's actually been going, as a matter of fact, because the National Association of Mortgage Field Services, buying through its executive director, Eric Miller, Eric and his good buddy Ryan. We all remember the law firm up there in Ohio on a Friday evening reached out and thought they're going to cut my head off. And on Monday morning, we had just all come to an accord. Yeah. So anyway, back more on point, we're talking about the contracts that are going to open up. And I sat back and I thought about this for a minute. And I had actually been asked, I'd been requested, I have some interesting clients and associations that I deal with. And they said, it just wouldn't be a good idea to release this right now. Because, it'll give everybody else the advantage or the upper hand. And, I don't subscribe to that. You know what I believe, and what my sources at HUD believe, and what some of the policy and decision makers at the Weaver Building in D.C. believe, is that the problem with this industry is that it has become such an incestuously intertwined bidding competition that there's no competition. If you go back all the way back to the days of the M&M2, you'll actually find this. Good old Alfonso Jackson et al., criminal probes. He incidentally was Secretary of Housing and Urban Development and had to leave under a shroud of, a shroud of disgrace, in my opinion. The names haven't really changed. And even when you look at the names, I guarantee you, take a drive down to Miami, Florida, and you're going to see a lot of them terminate there. Now, the ones who are really receiving some of my attention are the ones who actually spun up their companies out of post office boxes in Puerto Rico, and then restructured up here. Neither here nor there, back more on point to the fact that I feel that this type of information needs to start getting out to the masses. Now, I do consult with several consortiums who will be making a bid, making a run on the new HUD contract. But here's the deal. I'm not bound to contract for them. They elected, for whatever reason, they saw fit not to put me on a revolving payroll. So you know what? My information is my information. I've completed my services with them. Because if I can help one consortium get in, why not help everybody that I can get in? Because really, folks, that's the only way we're gonna affect change. It's the only way we're going to affect change in this is to get more people seated at that table. Now, also with respect to the fact that 3.7, 3.8, and ultimately the end game of HUD 4.0 rolling out is the fact that they're going to have what's called an industry day out there. This will probably be spun up sometime midsummer, I'd say, probably late July, maybe late June, but I'm figuring late July, maybe August. But what is that? Well, we go over here, you can see this was the 3.6 industry day. And we all remember, I broke the story on this. This was actually going on when I was breaking the story. Nobody wanted to talk about it. They all wanted to pretend it didn't exist, you know. And this actually talks about why these contracts change. In the instant case of what's going on now is that outfits like Sentinel Field Services, they screwed the pooch. You know, they way underbid, and you know, with their ex-CEO Thomas and Sarah, they should have had a little more. This is my opinion, but they should have had a little more fiscal sense than that. Really more on point, Brian Huggard. You know, shoot, this is a guy who was a guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. This is an individual whom wrapped his mind around daily, how things should and should not be done in a repetitive environment. My opinion, you know, I mean, drop the ball. And it's not just Sentinel. You know, A to Z down in Georgia, got a way underbid. Yeah, the list goes on and on ad nauseum. You know, 3.5 will roll out, but with specificity to the mess, the quagmire with Sentinel. You know, I'm predicting by the end of this month, probably no later than the first week, second week, maybe in June or so, I see Sentinel's contract going over to AMSREO. Now, I have a couple of sources there whom somewhat confirmed this, but they were very surprised and really asked me how I knew anything about any of this. Folks, that's my job. My job at the end of the day is to know somebody's thoughts before they even think that they're going to think about thinking about a thought. But, anyway, this talks a little bit about what's going on, the Migration 336. This is an industry day. And I like this one because it really brings into scope all the new, you know, areas that were spun up. You know, I remember back in the day, my little area here, you know, we were, back in the day, we were 1A. And, you know, as part of that, you can see, for example, Georgia became 7 Alpha. Yeah, you go out here, you know, Arizona spun up itself under 3 Sierra. You know, yada yada. So that's one of the big things I wanted to talk about and get this out immediately because I feel this is important. And I feel that, especially in the 21st century real-time communication, that there may be people out there, you know, early this morning or as the next couple of days roll along that say, hey, you know what? We have the capital. We have access to the contractors. Or, you know, by God, Paul Williams, I mean, he has an excellent database of contractors nationwide, including into the Solomon Virgin Islands. You know, this is something maybe we want to look at, you know. Why would Paul help us? Well, because he wants change. Why would HUD even consider us? Let's not bullshit around here, folks. HUD wants change, and they want change yesterday. And it's not so much that they want to change the faces. They want to change, really, at the end of the day, of how they're getting screwed. You know, let's not even bullshit around on that. HUD is getting screwed. Contractors are getting screwed, but HUD's getting screwed as well. And at the end of the day, you know, the sickening paradox to this is that all of us are taxpayers, and so thus the taxpayer is getting screwed. So we're really all getting screwed by ourselves. Madness, you know, pure unadulterated madness. But I wanted to also dovetail in something that kind of runs along those lines. I have a I have a friend of mine that I work with. Well, an associate would be more fair to say. His name's Ben Hallman. He's a journalist over at the Huffington Post. And several months back, you know, I reached out and actually started speaking with Ben about PPMS, how they had hired us and other contractors, and then they refused to pay us. But more on point, how outfits like Cooper City West and such. They allegedly ran a background check on them, and yet they didn't discover the fact that both the CEO and the COO, this would have been Lambert and Mathis, Brandon Lambert and Jason Mathis. Jason being the veteran supposedly from Afghanistan. And Lambert, I mean, he's nothing really but a crippled idiot. Truth be known, I met him down there in Atlanta. Anyway, they not only were felons, but they were wanted felons on the run. They had absconded. I just, simple Google internet search would run that, spun that up. Same way, Scott Allen Rains. Now, we'd brought to bear some pressure on behalf of a good friend of ours, Bruce Davenport, excellent contractor. He's actually from New Zealand. You ever get a chance, you got to hear him talk, man. I mean, great talking guy. But anyway, people like this, every single day of the week, nationals are hiring. Nationals are hiring them. And, nothing's being done, and people are getting screwed. People are going bankrupt. And, nationals, the regionals, the otherwise unspecified border mills, you know what they do? They stick their heads in the sand. So, we don't know nothing. Oh, no. Those roads don't come to us, but by God, if you mention our name, we're going to sue you into the Stone Age. Yeah. I love some of these new contracts coming out. The confidentiality clauses, you cannot place lien, nor can any of your subcontractors ever place lien if we choose not to pay you. If ever in my life I had seen something that completely and categorically failed to pass constitutional muster, clauses or caveats like that, those are in the top 5. So anyway, we reached out to Ben a couple months ago. We discussed with him the simple fact that PPMS was running amok, that amongst the nationals, or in this situation, they're more fairly characterized as prime vendors. They refused to do anything. We contacted HUD. HUD refused to do anything, albeit HUD was in a, excuse me a minute, HUD was in a more uniquely situated circumstance because categorically, contractors do not have what's commonly referred to as a doctrine of privity with specificity to the contract between the prime vendor and HUD. So, I can kind of understand HUD's position, albeit I felt it was egregious. So we moved that information over. And so Ben, the first of his articles he wrote up, to clean up foreclosure mess, banks rely on little-known industry plagued by fraud and abuse. Now, if you look here, you can easily, go over the date, and, you can easily backtrack to our website, or reach out to Ben, ask him. And he will tell you point blank that a good chunk, not only the information he relied upon, but the contractors, the sourcing that we gave him came from us. Here, let's take a listen. This is Ben right here.
Break down foreclosure for us, because I think so many of us understand foreclosure to be definitive and not part of a long process.
Well, that's right. That's a good question. I mean, the foreclosures, especially since the housing crash maybe 5 years ago, can drag on for years. Typically, it starts with a homeowner missing a few payments. The bank sends a default notice, and then anywhere from a year or two later, the bank can finally sell the house at auction. But during that process, a lot happens, and the story that I wrote for the Huffington Post, I think, speaks to a side of an industry that most people don't ever see. Nobody wants to live next door to a house that has broken windows and 4 feet tall weeds in the front yard. They could be hazardous. They become drug dens in some instances. But what I found over the course of, I guess, about an 8-month investigation was that the people that are being hired to look after these homes are very poorly vetted. Some of them have criminal backgrounds, and far too often they don't take very simple steps to confirm that a house actually has been abandoned before they break in.
When folks are behind on their mortgage inspectors and sent to their house, and if the servicer
I'm going to jump
and the
in here on
contractors
that
they
because I
hire
just wanted to show
determine
you
that
this first one, then
somehow
I'll move on to the next one. It's probably one of the largest pieces. I think it weighed in at 4,000 or 5,000 plus word count. But anyway, it's one of the largest pieces ever written by mainstream media, and it drove home a very specific point. And that point is that because of the, the prime vendors on the HUD side and on the pre-conveyance side, all the nationals running out and just hiring any old buddy they can off of Craigslist because they know they can pay them a couple of pennies. What we have here is we have a second convolution of crisis that has evolved. Now, what they attempt to do, and actually what I just saw and this is interesting because I just saw Safeguard Properties do this, they want to be named as additionally insured. You know, I myself personally, and I'll tell Safeguard to their face because I'm sure their intelligence wonks are listening to this, you got me effed up. Son, I'm not going to tote your insurance. There's a reason why you're either a certificate holder or additionally insured. Anybody who goes for additionally insured, what they're doing is they're rolling the dice. And I'll tell you, the banks tried to get this off a couple of years back. And I'm not saying Safeguard is doing this. I want to be very clear on that. But I do know what the banks did is that they would go out and they would find issues on a gazillion orders. And what they would do is they would calculate out, okay, what is the payment threshold that a contractor has to make against the damage. Okay, so for example, if your offset's $1,000, and they say, well, there was $799 worth of damage, and we're just going to remove that immediately from your pay. I mean, it was win-win. I mean, this was huge. And, everybody calls that a deductible. But, this thing was huge. And we're talking tens of millions of dollars that was backdoored out that way. How much more so when we begin to become involved in naming people additionally insured? Fast forward right on over to PK Management. Good old Pedro Palatine down in Miami, and their demands that they be listed on your auto insurance. Big and bold. We broke the story on that, buddy. Let me get this straight. When I take my wife out to the movies, and God forbid a car hits us, what's that? You want to be there during the collections process and stick your hand in my piggy jar? No, not happening on my watch, son. Not happening. But that was the first time, like I say, based upon our information, that the mainstream media actually opened the door. So they followed up. They followed up on the fact that a Safeguard forever and a day was saying, oh, this is minuscule. Oh, this isn't happening. There's no statistics to back this up. But as a matter of fact, there were statistics. And what Klein and Joff and Halpern et al. Didn't bank on, nor did they predict, was the fact that one of their employees had kept statistics. And that's why, after this story right here broke, they remodified their entire contract. First paragraph of that entire contract is, it is off the charts. And there's a lot of contractors out there right now whom are arguing with the fact that, well, they can do what they want, or, you don't have to work in this industry if you don't want to. Well, this statement is to you people specifically, and on the sidelines, Klein et al. The fact of the matter is that the ambiguous use of the term confidential information deals specifically with the fact that it is all information. Study those first two sentences very carefully, folks, because this means in theory, that if you work for a safeguard and you show up, and let me be very blunt here, because you cannot legally discuss anything about them, the work order, or anything. But God forbid that that house where that terrorist was holed up in that boat was foreclosed, and a neighbor, and you pulled up, and a neighbor said, "Hey, I think that the terrorist is over there in a boat." Information like that may sound, completely insane. You couldn't pick up the phone. You couldn't, because you would be breaching the clause in the contract, which would open you up to, and I want to quote here, both civil and criminal penalties, end quote. Make absolutely no mistake. When this article right here broke, and where this employee released all these Excel spreadsheets, we find that hey, the egregious conduct that is ongoing out there is far larger than anybody wants to speak about. Now, while Safeguard did or didn't put their contract together with specificity to being now additionally insured, I don't know. What I do know is that there is a tremendous amount of lawsuits that have now walked the line, and they're getting ready for trial. Now, I do know that at some point in time, legal defense starts to cost money. Whether you use a lodestar fee or you keep people on a retainer, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It starts costing a lot of money. You can see here, complaints came in seemingly without end. I'd pick up the phone, put it down, and then it would ring again. This is only one person. Only one person. Once again, what is the problem here? The problem, in my personal and professional opinion, is that when you reach out and you hire people off of Craigslist, you may run into some trouble. And when you take a product and continue to cut the price of that product, you no longer enable professional individuals with lengthy career experience to be able to meaningfully participate in this industry. The end result of that is what you see is going on here. Also, the byproduct of that as well is that the taxpayer at the end of the day suffers. Because even though these are allegedly banks' properties, many people don't understand this. The homeowner pays for all those services. A lot of people don't know that. We just encountered a situation, Safeguard buying through an outfit we work for. We got a work order, go down and cut the grass, took the bush off down there. They met us at the gate, and hey, it was a bad mess. And here in East Tennessee, it's not like where y'all live in the metro areas. This is a very rural area. And so a lot of times gunplay comes into action. So we were fortunate they didn't hold court in the streets. But what he said was, hey, I don't want you cutting this grass because I'm involved in litigation with Bank of America. And he said, and I'm going to quote here, I don't give a gee damn who Safeguard is or who sent you out here. Get the F off my land, end quote. So, we got a lot of stuff going on here.
Safeguard Properties was supposed to be protecting millions of homes that slid into foreclosure. Instead, internal documents reveal a very different story, one that accuses the company of incompetence, thefts, and break-ins. Joining us to discuss on set is Ben Hallman, HuffPost senior financial writer. So Ben, the Huffington Post led the investigation and focused on Safeguards as the largest player in the little scrutinized industry. You've been digging, so tell us about your findings.
Sure. Well, just to give you a little bit of background, this is an industry that is supposed to be looking after the foreclosed homes that are out there, and there's millions of these homes that are in default or foreclosure. Basically, if you fall behind on your mortgage payments by more than 45 days, somebody's coming by to look at your house. The bank sends somebody to look after your house. And there's reasons for that, because you don't want these houses just decaying and becoming hazards. Yeah. So what I've found over the course of 8 or 9 months of looking into this industry, and the story we're talking about today is the third story I've written, is that too often the contractors that are hired by the banks don't take enough care before they decide to break into a house. And once they're inside, rather than backing away quietly, if they realize that the house is still occupied, sometimes they're removing people's possessions, basically stealing their stuff.
And how did this come to light?
Well, so initially, my investigation was sparked by a tip, but as it's progressed, I've talked to dozens of the contractors who actually do this work.
Why am I bringing to light the fact that I contribute a lot of information to the Huffington Post, and B, why I feel it's important to everybody out there, because it does tend to have a bad lean towards contractors. Well, I'm going to tell you precisely why. Mr. Hallman is getting ready to do a series now on the prime vendors and the nationals out there whom seem to forget to pay their contractors. What the angle will or won't be with specificity to the thousands of pages of information that I am releasing is going to become quite interesting in this series. I'm going to leave it at that. But this is a wake-up call. This is a wake-up call to the nationals, to the regionals, to the prime vendors, to the otherwise unspecified order mills, that change is coming. Change is coming. And everybody is going to be drug kicking and screaming into the 21st century. You know, the past 3 years, the debacle, the nightmare of a rabbit hole that we as contractors have been drugged down into is going to come to an end. And I believe as as the days and the weeks move forward, that we're also going to begin to see a heavier scrutinization by governmental officials. And I'm not talking about HUD. I'm not talking about the director of the M&M or the secretary of HUD. I'm talking about senators and congressmen and women. I've fielded 11 requests for information from legislative assistants stretching from East Coast to West Coast. 3 of those were senators. The others were congresspersons. Regulations coming, folks. And myself, I applaud that. I think it should. Because contractors, time and again, have attempted to reach out to the industry and say, hey, we need to find some common ground. We need to get rid of these idiots, these, I don't even want to use the word contractors, these piles of feces that are out there and being hired off of Craigslist. They need to be gone. I still stand by my my statement that in upwards of 80% of the contractors in this industry have absolutely no business in it whatsoever. As you're going to see in the next couple of days, we're going to be breaking some stories. Several members of our A team, the Foreclosurepedia A team, have reached out to their state contractor regulatory authorities and the state and United States Department of Labor with specificity to what licenses are legally required to A, perform a winterization, and B, to electrically backfeed a home. Now, the former, with specificity to winterizations, those happen everywhere. Those are very common orders. I'm going to tell you, everybody, probably except for the nationals and everybody on the corporate side, everybody is going to be very surprised with those results. With the latter, the B, the electrical backfeeding of these homes with specificity to the HPIR, the HUD property inspection report, I think even the United States government is going to take note here, because of the fact that the Craigslist crackheads are not legally allowed. And now listen to those words. Are not legally allowed to perform those services unless they're a master electrician in many of the states that we actually reached out for comment. And, you know, just to clarify here real quick, we didn't just make a phone call. I mean, that's not how the A-team works. No, we have this on letterhead. So you're going to want to keep your eyes peeled for that. That's going to be coming up here in, excuse me, in the next couple of days. And in closing, you know, I encourage everybody out there to become actively involved in the HUD process. My personal opinion, pre-conveyance, you know, by and large, is going to continue to be the Wild West, probably, you know, until some heinous crime ends up being committed. Statistically, well, we can't even talk about statistics on pre-conveyance. Maybe the National Association of Mortgage Field Services maintains those. I don't know. Honestly, I'm gonna reach out to Eric Miller and ask whether or not there's any stats that are kept on that side. You know, but as a non-member, I don't even know if he would release those to me. But I'll get back with everybody on that. But if you have an interest, in becoming involved, and perhaps making a run or a bid on the HUD contract, reach out. Give me a holler. Hey, you know, we'll pull up a chair, or we'll pull up the phone, we'll talk. Perhaps several of you can come together as a consortium, put the capital together to make a run on this. Because what we need to do is we need to come back. We need to come back and reclaim this industry that at the end of the day is ours. All right, that's great that the nationals, you know, put together their IT infrastructures, and most of those are ancient or archaic anyway, but that's great that they play with the data and such. But the reality is we do the work. We, ladies and gentlemen, do the work. And to simply look at us like a byline, a non-plus, if you will, it's both ignorant and I feel dangerous. I feel it's dangerous because any company or corporation, any business that is willing to place profit ahead of protection, in my opinion, you know, poses a clear and present danger to the industry that we all serve today. I don't feel that this is something that's going to be, you know, achieved easily. The only way that growth occurs, much like a muscle, you have to rip it. You have to rip it, and then it begins to expand. And so, proverbially speaking, I think, you know, everybody's going to have to get down to brass tacks. And one of the best ways of doing that is to approach it from the federal side to hopefully affect some kind of change, you know, to get that discussion out there. I have it on good account that the United States government will be very receptive to looking at newcomers coming into this industry. So feel free, reach out, give me a holler. You know, perhaps you or your consortium could be the next big player in HUD. I appreciate everybody's viewing and listening to the podcast this evening. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to reach out to me, COO@Foreclosurepedia.org. Y'all have a good evening.